Hello from all different parts of the world. The NSMA 2026 FIFA World Cup Podcast is proud to bring you the first episode of many as we try to bring you the great recaps, our opinions. Whether you like them or not, you're still listening, as we are incredibly excited to get things started here for this brand new venture. Welcome to everyone watching or listening around the world. Spencer Thompson joined alongside Drew Williamson. We have our guest Etienne Castillo Hernandez, proud to be with you in various parts of North America. Well, I had to make sure it was formal at the get-go. This is going to be one of those very more casual podcasts, as Drew is very familiar with. But, Drew, good to see you. I know it's been a while since I know we've been interacting a lot on texts and phone calls as we've been leading up to starting this thing. But World Cup is already here, and one would say, why didn't we start this a little bit earlier? And it's because it's sports media. We like to make things a little last second and react with the punches to go. But anyways, good to see you, man. How you feeling about the World Cup so far?
I'm feeling amazing. I'm feeling so just grateful to be, in this opportunity. I was so happy when you reached out and asked me to co-host this podcast with you because the World Cup is just something that, it only happens once every 4 years for a reason. That just shows how special it is. And the fact that, it's happening in our home country this year too just makes that, even more special. And it's just a great time for everyone to come together and watch, a beautiful game being played on the world's biggest stage. So.
Yeah, and I'm on site in Los Angeles right now. One of many reasons why there's this backdrop here, so you can't see how messy of a person I am. For those who are watching on YouTube, for the podcast side, there's a kind of press conference style backdrop that features the logos of the World Cup, the association I'm credentialed with, the International Sports Press Association, and of course the National Sports Media Association. I have to remember that I'm so used to television and visual mediums on broadcasting that on podcasts, when something happens, like if I'm flailing my hands like I am right now, nobody on the podcast can see that or understand that sort of thing. So Mr. Etienne, I know it's been over 6 months since we've seen each other Chile. It's hard to believe that it's been over half a year since we were down in Santiago and bouncing between different cities down in the lovely nation of Chile. So how are you feeling as we get started with the World Cup, not just in the United States, but in your home nation of Mexico?
It's so special have a tournament like this in Mexico. But the problem is it's not in all Mexico. It is only in some cities. Only we have 3 host cities. Unfortunately for us, it's not the same feeling as 88 and the 70. We got more host cities in those tournaments. For example, Puebla, my city, was part of those tournaments. And right now, uh, of course, it's special, but it's something different in comparison with this tournament. But well, we can enjoy the World Cup as the others World Cups. We can see the matches with friends, with the family, in the job right now because well, right now we are working about this.
Yeah, and you make a valid point on the not having as many cities as a part of the hosting side. I think that it's a standard, not just in the FIFA World Cup, but in other major sporting events where they're looking for particular cities and nations that sort of meet their standards in a way. And I know that for other nations, that's where they get to host some of the lower things. From a United States standpoint, we have the NFL that hosts the NFL draft in cities that wouldn't have really any realistic chance of hosting the Super Bowl. And that's kind of become some of the cities like Super Bowls in a way. But I think it's very much also telling of how, I mean, just from a global sport perspective, even Toronto had to expand the capacity on its soccer stadium to be able to host matches for the World Cup there. Because, I know they have both Toronto and Vancouver, and they didn't have to do that much to the Vancouver stadium to get it up to speed. But you're right; it's very telling of sort of the times and the standard we live in, not just from a U.S. perspective, but just around the world in this sort of case of building these fantastic stadiums and making sure these cities are picture perfect in a way on the global side of things. I mean, we saw it 4 years ago in Qatar, which they went through the effort to build multiple stadiums and make themselves even a greater picture perfect place. And one could say it's sports washing. Well, more than one, I'll put it that way. But it's still, at the end of the day, you talk to most people in media that are in these nations. I think it's one of those leading up and in the moment where people will say, well, we wish there was more, or there was more that could be done. But once the whistle blows, nobody really cares. I mean, I'm sure you were probably cheering cheering the chants of Mexico when that first kickoff went off. Am I correct on that?
Well, I'm not a kind of supporter of the Mexico national team. I always I am always criticizing him or it, sorry, because the national team has a big problem since the last 8 years, because we know the players have a good level, but they don't show that they are lower than they can do. For that reason, I'm not the only one. More journalists, more people, not only the journalists, even the fans, say, hey, this team can do better things, and right now they are with poor results. Well, right now with the first match of the World Cup, obviously it's a different moment, because even in the memes you can see you can criticize all the time the national team, but in the first match of the World Cup, you will be there cheering for the national team. You will be the most Mexican in Mexico, like me. Well, obviously, I want that Mexico wins, but I need to have this feeling that the Mexican national team is playing good, and well, we can do big things in the World Cup.
Oh boy, a national team frustrating media members and fans of it. Drew, does that sound familiar to you?
Oh, it does. More than you know. More than you know. To kind of go off what you were just saying, like watching that opening ceremony today and like seeing the true passion and excitement of fans in that stadium was just something that I've never seen before. And I even heard one of the commentators, I believe it was Landon Donovan, say that he's been in that stadium, hundreds of times. Obviously, he was, one of the stars for the U.S. A few years back, but he said he has never seen the stadium as alive as it was today. And you could feel that through the TV. It was amazing.
I tell you, it's yeah. I like I mentioned, I'm here in Los Angeles, and I am very interested to see how it, especially with all the talks about ticket sales and pricing people out of the stadium and the kind of political clout that's been around this World Cup, which no World Cup is immune to that. As a matter of fact, I know in the last two editions have been a lot more microscoped on that because they stemmed from the challenges that FIFA had in their leadership back in those days. But I mean, even before that, even Brazil had its issues. I mean, South Africa had its issues trying to get those things situated. I mean, it's just, again, it's a domino effect of when you get these international events and even national events. Like, you have people who are being critical of it and such. But I'm interested to see how packed SoFi is for tomorrow. I say tomorrow when this episode is going to publish, the day of. I'm interested to see how this stuff is going to go down in SoFi and Seattle, and then back to SoFi for at least Team USA's group stages. I know fans have started showing out in the stadiums down in Mexico for those respective games, and it's it's already been a good start. We've got that opening ceremony you mentioned that happened in Mexico. We got one over here in Los Angeles too, with a lot of great big name artists that are coming up. A couple housekeeping things before we get into our full on more in depth recap of the matches as part of the podcast that we're going to do. So. This is in essence going to be a recap podcast in a way. We're going to give our opinions, throw out some stuff on not just the matches, but also on some relevant topics that are surrounding the tournament as they come along. We're also going to try to bring on as many guests as we can. ETN having the great honor of being the first guest for good reason. That his home nation has the 2 opening matches, and we're also going to try to use this as something that's a lot more loose, fun. Maybe we start some sort of segment or something of like, what's Drew thinking about, or something along those lines. We'll figure it out as we go. But one other thing, this podcast is made very much in part by the donors who have supported us so far. At the end of our video, we make sure to thank them all, and at the end of the podcast, make sure to support them all. And if you want to support the podcast and help us to continue producing great quality throughout this FIFA World Cup, there's a donor link in the description on all the podcast episodes as well as on YouTube. Make sure you support, and your donations help benefit not only my travel expenses going along with the World Cup, but it also helped the National Sports Media Association, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization in the United States that helps their goal in supporting sportscasters and sports writers across the United States. Okay, so now that we got the housekeeping out of the way, I got some bones to pick here with these opening matches. I got some angry things to say about in this stuff. So the opening ceremony, great for Mexico. I think great presentation, great idea in terms of opening this sort of thing. The match had drama, my friends. The Mexico, South Africa had drama galore. And it's not just from those goals by Quinones and Jimenez in to be fair, getting a goal in the first and second half, especially in a World Cup opener match. Mexico in Mexico City Stadium, because we can't technically call them by their actual names because of FIFA restrictions, but the Mexico Stadium for this opening match, it has hosted. So I believe this is now the 3rd time it has hosted an opening match for the World Cup, and the previous 2 were not great in history for Mexico. So there was a lot of pressure on the Mexican national team to step up here and to make things different. And they did. And not only in a matchup like, I don't know, and ETN, you could speak to this. I don't know if a draw would have even been a good result for a World Cup opener for Team Mexico. But the fact that not only did they win in their first matchup, but also a 2-0 shutout to help with that goal differential tie going into the rest of group play. I don't know if you could ask for a better start for Team Mexico, ETN.
Yes, I'll be honest. I'll be honest because South Africa, of course, is a good team because qualified to the World Cup, but wasn't the same team as 2010. This team is lower in the level, in possibilities. Obviously, a win, a victory, it's always a good thing to start a World Cup. But in this match, to be honest, Mexico could win 4-0, 5-0 even.
Yeah.
And well,
Sure.
even the coach, Javier Aguirre, was autocritic, is the correct word. Because he said, I don't like the play that we are getting right now. We are having the possession of the ball. We are having more time in the attack, but we didn't score. That was a big problem because maybe, okay, Mexico right now won 2-0, but maybe Korea could win 3-0. Sorry, yes, 3-0, 4-0, even 5-0, and then that can move the positions in the Group A. For that reason, I think it's was a good thing that Javier Aguirre said that, because he's telling us that, okay, we won, but it's not enough.
Oh yeah.
I
Yep.
absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And like before I say what I'm about to say, I'm gonna like let me give Mexico their props because they came out in a game that I know they were feeling a lot of pressure, and I know the stadium, the whole entire stadium's rooting for them. I understand that. On that same note, though, I believe that South Africa is the weakest team in this group. And
Yes,
I believe that
absolutely.
I was a little bit disappointed with how Mexico played after they scored their first goal, especially after South Africa got their first red card. I believe they didn't play as aggressive as they needed to. It's like they needed to get that, and they finally did get that second goal, but
Yeah.
I'm still a little disappointed with the way that Mexico treated that second half, especially when South Africa were down to 10 men. I feel like they could have pressed more. And like you said, Etienne, like getting more chances and possibly winning 3 or 4, nil instead of 2-0. It's just, it didn't seem that convincing. Obviously, I'm going to give them their credit. They won. It was a statement, win to open up as the host. But I was a little disappointed in Mexico today.
Yes, and even, for example, talking about the stadium, right now the stadium is not playing with us. It's playing against the Mexican national team, because the people, when doesn't like how is playing the team, they will be against you. They will be showing up against the players, and well, they are in their rights, because if they are paying for a ticket and they don't like what they are watching, well, they can say, "I'm not agree with the team." It's correct.
Hmm. Yeah.
I first off, ETN, you giving that expression or quoting Mexico's coach about, well, we could have won 5-0. It seems eerily similar to a university that I graduated from recently, that Drew is on the verge of graduating from, where their fan base is, well, we didn't beat a team by 70-0. We didn't shut them out or beat them by like 4 or 5 touchdowns,
It's
which,
always the you could have done more. It's always that, which is
yes.
good. I mean, a winning program needs, structure like that. So,
Oh yeah, and that's the mentality you have to take, especially in the World Cup, where it's this relentless pursuit of not necessarily perfection, but trying to make sure that you understand that there are still mistakes we made. There are still things we could have done better, and it's a matter of trying to step these things up as we head down the rest of the way. I will say I am in agreement about South Africa being the weakest team in this group now. At first, going into the tournament, I would have disagreed and said Czech Republic, because the fact that in order for them to qualify, they had to have 2 straight games that were on penalty shots, and we're very lucky on the luck of the draw there, which you can look at that one of two ways of well, they forced it to penalty shots because they're evenly matched with the other people in their group, or you can look at it as this team couldn't score in 90 plus or up to 105 minutes and had to go down to their penalty kick game, and not wanting to discount the importance of penalty kicks and training on those shots, but in a way, it's a coin flip, right? Like when you get to these penalty kicks, like I used to be a goalkeeper in high school, and one of the main things of wisdom I got from not just my coaches but other goalkeepers around the league was, on penalty shots, if you make a save, you're a hero. If you miss it, nobody cares.
that's the truest thing I've ever heard. Because I was the flip side. I played striker in high school, so I would always, most times where my team would, it would be a penalty, I'd be the one taking it. And again, like if I make it, it's expected. but it gets saved, then I'm the bad guy. So
Yeah, so I mean, it's with Czech Republic. I would have told you going into this, they're the ones who are, I mean, not necessarily underdogs, but they're the weakest group because the fact that you have to, in an already the lower tier in a way, World Cup qualifying group compared to the others, that you're having to go to penalty shots and sort of limp your way into the tournament is a different thing. But now I agree, especially from what I saw on Mexico and South Africa. And not only that, it's we were mentioning this beforehand, but the last two editions of the men's FIFA World Cup, we've only had a maximum of 4 red cards throughout both of those tournaments entirely. So 4 in 2018, 4 in 2022. We are already up to 3. And 2 of those came from South Africa and in the same half. ETN,
crazy.
when was the last time you watched a professional soccer game where they were down to 9 players on the pitch?
Oh, I don't remember, but I remember
I don't either.
the Nuremberg battle when Portugal and Netherlands played for the round of 18. I remember
yes.
that was a madness. I don't remember how many red cards, how many yellow cards we could see during this match.
Now, here's the big question for you, ETN. Cesar Montes, should he have gotten that red card?
No. I
Just
I
straight
am
up, no.
thinking the second red card to South Africa and the red card to Cesar Montes were a mistake. They didn't deserve that because weren't, for example, the second red card was for a kind of punch in the head. I
It was
couldn't
like
see
it was like
a
he was
real
like a little.
a
He
real
was trying to
punch.
get by him, and it was like a little elbow
Yeah,
to his face. So
but it's a natural movement for the body. You are trying to get the ball, and well, you are moving your arm. Obviously, you can touch the other player, but that wasn't an aggression. That wasn't a real foul. And the second red card to Cesar Montes, the only one red card to Mexico, to Cesar Montes, wasn't a play, a real opportunity to make a goal.
what?
I don't understand why the referee thought that was a red card. It was a mistake.
I agree. No, I told Spencer before we even started this that I said I agreed with only one of the 3 red cards given, and I completely agree with, because he was not through on goal when he made that challenge. It was an obvious foul, but it was not deserving of a red card in my opinion. And it's just so like crazy to me that we already had 3, like that we set history. It's the World Cup. It's never been done in World Cup history. Has there been 3 red cards in an opening match? And, like you said, 4 in the last tournaments, together is crazy. It's like the, setting a message for how this tournament might end up if people aren't careful. So
The most red cards that have been issued in a tournament ever in the FIFA World Cup was 28, and that was back in 2006, and that was with 64 games. We're now up to over 100 games in this expanded 48-team format. So the fact that we've got 3, a lot of these statistics and things, they can easily change, but it's there was most red cards in a match for both teams was 4. That was Portugal and the Netherlands in 06, where there was 2 for each. So we almost tied that record in that match years ago. So the fact that we're, like you said, Drew, I'm kind of shocked by it. I know that Citol with the red card at the 49th minute. And think about it this way. You're coming out of the locker room, out of the break, and you have a 1-0 lead as Mexico, or a 1-0 deficit as South Africa. And you think, okay, we got to set the tone early. We got to make a difference here. We got to try to come back the equalizer. Not even 5 minutes out of the locker room, you get a red card and go down to man advantage. That's the kind of thing that just irritates coaches at any level, much even more at a World Cup stage.
Absolutely. And then I think on the flip side of that, that is why, Mexico's coach after the game was like, he was happy, but he feels like they were too complacent after they got that, first red when they were sent to 10 men. And I think that was kind of the issue with me for Mexico during this game is they were too conservative at times, I feel like. But yeah, no, it's a horrible thing for on South Africa's side because you're still in the game at that point. It's only 1-0, so that was unfortunate. It really was, and because I feel like it wasn't deserved. So
Yeah, I
Yes,
don't know if you've got any more thoughts on it, ETM, but it's just one of those where, well, I specifically in terms of Cesar Montes, I know it's not necessarily deserving the red card, but you think in extra minutes, so he has to miss the next game. So that's the big part of it that goes in as well, and you have to go into your substitute bench on that side, and you have to choose between Jorge Sanchez or Edson Alvarez between the two. Now,
no,
Alvarez did
Edson Alvarez will
substitute.
be
Sorry, say that again.
Edson Alvarez will be because Jorge Sanchez plays more for the left side, and maybe Javier Aguirre will bet for Edson Alvarez or Luis Romo. They are midfielders that can play in the central back.
Yeah, and I was about to say that Alvarez did get some minutes in at the 76th minute. He substituted in, so he's already got that kind of experience and being ready on the backside. So he'll be good to go on the starting end.
I do want to make a point of who Mexico brought in late that I honestly feel like they should have brought in late is Mora, the youngest, the 17-year-old, the youngest in the whole tournament. You could just tell by the way he came in and immediately I think they scored, I know it wasn't him that set up the chance, but they scored almost 3 minutes into bringing him in. He just
Yep.
brings so much energy and just such a passion to this Mexico team that I just love.
Yes, Gilberto Mora is or no hero. We are our hopes on him. Maybe that could be not a good idea because could be a big pressure for him. But well, yes, he has something different. He can see the match. He can make the difference. He's something extraordinary. Well, I hope that he can get a better club after this World Cup.
I mean, when you talk about the youth, yeah, Mora, you mentioned it at 17, young star, able to make his way in at a couple of minutes. Probably could have benefited from coming in earlier for the competition for Mexico. But when you look to the future of Mexico, how endearing is it, ETN, that Raúl Jimenez, in his 4th World Cup for Team Mexico, manages to score a goal in the opening match on his home soil?
Well, I think it is so hard for a striker being the best striker of your national team during a lot of years, but you cannot score in the World Cup. But well, maybe it wasn't the same pressure as, for example, the rookie Smora, because maybe you want to score before the retirement. Maybe you are fighting with this in a match. Well, right now he could score. Um, I think maybe that uh, will decrease the pressure on him. Maybe he can play better. He can play more free with more liberty. I hope that could play better for him.
Yeah, it's it honestly, hopefully Jimenez gets to build off of that momentum. And of course, Team Mexico has already been building momentum when they won the CONCACAF Nations League, Gold Cup champions last year, and especially you alluded to it earlier, ETN, of just this tough stretch in the last couple of years that the Mexico national team has had in trying to keep people motivated and actually supportive of the national team as a whole. But all of that noise has at least been put to the side for the next 7 days because they got the win. They've got a +2 goal differential right now and are looking good. And I believe it was Rob Stone who was saying earlier on the Fox Sports broadcast that if you win your opening match in group play in the World Cup, 75% of the teams that do that end up winning the group and moving on to the knockout stage. So it's a great sign for Team Mexico.
I will say I am not completely convinced with Mexico's win today. However, I am a big history guy, and the history says that the last time, or the 2 times Mexico hosted the World Cup, when in 1970 and 1986, they made their best finishes, which was the quarterfinals. So it is a fact that they play good on their home soil. That's why I had them coming out of this group fairly easily and making it to the knockouts.
Yeah, and it's again, they may not have won the opening matches on that, but it didn't matter because they managed to go to the quarterfinals. So you wonder what's in store in the history side of things as they get it done 2-0, and they'll have their next matchup within 7 days. One other match that opened up the activity for the 2026 FIFA World Cup was definitely one for the ages in South Korea and the Czech Republic. As look, this South Korea team has impressed me so many times in how competitive they've been over the last several years. I mean, they're the only nation from Asia to make it to a World Cup semifinal, which is astounding to think about on that stat throughout the history of the World Cup. And the fact that they were the first one to do it back in 2002, and there's been several editions of this World Cup to get us to that point. But I tell you, Guadalajara was treated to an incredible matchup with these two teams. I mean, and Czech Republic started out leading with a 1-0 goal lead, and it was right out of the locker room within 14 minutes of the second half. I mean, Landislav able to get a good chance and set things up there, and especially he scored in both of their qualifying games. Even though they ended up being in penalty shots, he's a big difference maker for this Czech Republic team. And yes, I know I said earlier that I thought they might be the weakest team going into this plan, but they're strong, and they also help their even though they lost, they helped their goal differential stat line as unfortunately they take the loss, but they've at least helped on that sort of statistic.
Absolutely, and I think that the biggest thing in this game was experience, right? South Korea is a team that's been there. They have players that have been in that stage, in that moment before. Czech Republic hasn't qualified in 20 years, I believe. They have a lot of new faces, a lot of people making, their World Cup debuts, including their head coach as well. So I think honestly, I don't know if it was more of South Korea being poor against set pieces or Czech Republic being really good at set pieces, but they were able to get that goal. But I think their inexperience kind of allowed South Korea to creep back and get those 2 late goals to end up getting the 3 points.
Yeah, and
Yes,
yeah,
I think the Czech Republic, we couldn't see in a World Cup since Peter Cech, since Pavel Nedved, since Tomáš Rosický, the biggest stars from Czech Republic. And right now they are so young. Even the old people in the team, they don't have the experience in this kind of tournaments. Even in the Euro Cups, we could see the Czech Republic struggling with some matches that looks like the low or like the poor team against another poor team, and they were so poor.
yeah.
It's so curious. Well, the Korea team, the Korean national team, well, they have been playing the World Cup since 98 since France. I don't
Yeah,
remember
about that time, yeah.
the edition, but well, they have the experience. They have a player like Son. Son is it's a world crack. They have all the experience. Even the rookies can take the advice of him. Well, it's a different kind of experience, and that can play with South Korea in this group. I am agree with you.
Absolutely,
I
and going off
yeah.
that experience that Son, especially Son, because you could tell even watching this match. I know he didn't. He had a lot of chances. I know he didn't convert any, but you could still see that the veteran presence that he's been in that moment before. And I honestly believe that the score at the final whistle was justified. I believe that South Korea was the better team for the 90 minutes, and ultimately the scoreboard showed that. So.
Yeah, and I mean, Son Heung-min. We mentioned, he's the captain. He had several chances on that. I think the big ticket item that's been for the South Korea squad heading in here is that they have several players who are prominent stars in Europe, in the Premier League and other leagues around those respective places, and it's especially thinking about it. It's weird as someone who follows Team USA to think that Jurgen Klinsmann was the head coach of this team and then eventually got knocked out because he didn't have the results that they had. But, and, ETN, we even saw this in the under-20 Men's World Cup in Chile last fall where Japan and Korea, like, regardless of whether it's win or defeat, there is a great pride in the work that they do. And there is a great pride and sense of just an honor to be able to compete for their national team and represent their colors on that stuff. And that's what's always impressed me about South Korea in the last couple editions of the World Cup is that I never see any let up from them. They're never taking their foot off of the gas pedal, and that was the case here because even when they go down 14 minutes into the second half, they're still just trying to churn out goals, churn out opportunities, and that seemed to be a case that played out here.
Absolutely. It feels like they were never worried, never wavered. They knew that they were, well into the game. They had created more chances. Even when Czech Republic got their first goal, they had created more chances. They knew that one was around the corner. And like you said, like we've all said, they play with such a passion. And they're one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most respected teams in the entire World Cup.
And
Yes,
I will add one more thing on that. No cards in this game. No penalties issued. So we got a bit of a relief from what we saw in game one. We saw
like
hold on. Let me make sure that I'm fact checking myself. Okay, I was wrong actually. There was one yellow at 90 plus 6 minutes on Korea's Ji-hook Lee was the one. So technically we didn't get any penalty cards or yellow cards through the game because that was like at the final minutes of stoppage time or whatever. So we have one card in that game. Again, huge relief from the previous game.
That could be the play of the referee, because sometimes when you have a good referee in a pitch, he can give the match. The players won't play with fouls. And well, that's the proof that we can have a match with only one yellow card.
That's amazing too. Like I've always been a guy that's just like if you are crossing the line, absolutely. Like I want a ref to keep both teams in check, but at the same time, I really just want them to let them play. Don't interfere with the game itself. Just let them play. Again, if one person crosses the line, obviously lay down the law, but let them play, man.
Yeah, and they certainly did for at least 90 plus 6. It was one of those penalties necessary. I mean, you could say at the end of the game doesn't really matter, but in the grand scheme of things, it does, especially when you're thinking about if you get yellow cards in back-to-back games, you're suspended the next one. So it's one of those that at the end of the day, if it's a foul, it's a foul. They have to do what they got to do. For Czech Republic, despite having to go through 2 penalty shot games to qualify and having that home advantage in Prague for that final game, they lose their opener here in the 2026 FIFA World Cup, but South Korea has really increased their chances to help win Group A. So it does set up for a good showdown between Mexico and South Korea when we get to that stage.
That will be the match of the group, Mexico
sure.
against South
Sure.
Korea, because that will be the match for to be the lead of the group, to be here in Mexico during the next rounds. But I need to say something about Czech Republic. Could be dangerous with Mexico with the crossed balls, because we could see that with South Korea. They couldn't catch the ball when was in the air, because the players from Czech Republic have a good air play, to say in a way.
Very true. Very true. I noticed throughout the whole game that, again, like I alluded to earlier, I don't know if it was just South Korea being really poor at defending set pieces, or if it was Czech Republic's just ability to create so much off set pieces. I mean, they almost at the very end, I believe it was like the 86th, 87th minute, they almost got another goal to equalize off of a set piece. So Mexico is definitely going to have some trouble defending them on set pieces. And honestly, if you're Czech Republic, you got to look at this result, although you lost, as positive, because one, you scored a goal, so your goal difference, isn't poor yet, and in my opinion, they have yet to face the weakest team in the group. So, in a way, you got to look at that and be, positive.
Not only that, when you think about how this expanded World Cup, it's a big difference on the best third place team in certain groups as well, with the qualifiers going forward. South Africa is sweating a little bit as they try to get a victory and try to keep their hopes alive for the elimination game. But not to say Czech Republic isn't sweating at this point, but they at least have a little more reassurance in terms of trying to fight for that second place. And who knows? I mean, they lost to one team, but they could maybe in goal differential, they could take the group or something like that. I mean, it's still a long shot, but they could at least try to get something going on there. See, anyone from Czech Republic listening, if you can hear what I'm saying, you have some hope, okay? So it's not really, or South Africa, you have some hope, okay? Maybe just get like an 8-0 victory against.
Play the next round, eh?
Yeah, they can just make it. It's not like ETN here. I'm basically saying, hey, Mexico could fall. That's a great way to have a guest in, right? Tell them that their nation's going to fall. But
everything that we are talking about, the matches, is with all the respect of the world.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Of course.
And just a bow tie on this. Same with the officials. Like we disagree with the calls and think that it probably shouldn't have been called, but like we're not the ones in real time having to make judgments on this stuff. So it's easy to be. I don't have any.
It's like the hardest job in the world.
I don't have any armrests on my chair, but the armchair official is the term we use in the States for that kind of stuff. So it's like it's easy for us to judge on those things, but it's a hard job. It really is. So,
Spencer, I have a homework for you. You are the man of the stats. I heard about that the Czech Republic was the team with more goals by crossed balls during the qualifiers from the UEFA. I'm not sure, but that will be your homework.
It honestly sounds about right in terms of, especially the one thing I noticed, and look, saying I'm trying to put a bow on these things so we could preview the next matches, and yet we're still talking about it. But that you see, that's what's called free flow. That's how we work in sports media. But
the best way.
It's. I can believe that, because when I was watching that game, the broadcasters and watching it on Fox Sports, they were mentioning another chance for Czech Republic, another chance for these folks, and there were a lot of cross opportunities that were coming through on the wings and edges, and I have to look again at the stat on that of how many corner kicks they had. I've got the game breakdown sheet. Oh, okay. So corner-wise, it was 5-4 in favor of Czech Republic. So not as many. They did have 10 direct free kicks and 2 indirect free kicks, compared to Korea's 14-3. So they still were generating chances, and considering they only had possession of the ball 38% of the match, like that they were able to generate those chances and everything, it helped them. The fact that you're able to get one goal when you're not possessing the ball more than 40% of the time, I mean, is pretty impressive anyway. So,
Absolutely.
But anyways, that's a wrap up of day one of this 2026 FIFA World Cup. And now we move on to, it's interesting how they go with this format of 2-2. I know that they're trying to benefit they were trying to benefit. It's weird because usually the way that FIFA schedules these group matchups is where either simultaneously or close in between the group matches happen at the same time, so it doesn't have an effect on, well, we don't need to play as hard because this team won or lost. I know that usually happens later in the group stages, but Group A had both of their matches today, but we've got Group B and Group D just having one of their matches when this episode publishes today. So it's kind of interesting how they did that scheduling, but I get why, because they want to have that opening game for Canada and Mexico and such. But it's interesting to me that they didn't have like Group B just open up Friday and then Group C opening up Saturday to kind of schedule that stuff. Just an editorial observation on my side before we get into the previews and such. I don't know if you have anything to add, ETN or Drew, on that.
I agree. I mean, when I first originally saw the format, I mean, I get it. Yes, so you're trying to incorporate the U.S., trying to give them, but you could have easily replaced the U.S. game with the other match in Group B. I believe it's Qatar and Switzerland.
Yeah,
and then had the U.S. play, like, you have 4 matches Saturday anyways. Could have been 2 from Group C and then 2 from Group D, and then it would have made more sense that way. But I understand why they decided to do it the way they did. But I'm just excited for the games tomorrow.
Anything to add on that editorial note,
it
ETN?
doesn't affect the tournament because, well, we can see the matches from the group stage. We are going to see all the matches, but it's not like we have the match day 2 first, and then the third match day, and then the first match day. No, it's only a change between the groups, but it's okay. It doesn't affect the tournament at the end.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's only the information in the schedules maybe could be so hard to understand, but it's something that it's not important.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's mostly they save that for the end of group stages, so that way it doesn't have an effect on the tiebreakers or stuff like that, because that did happen several decades ago in the World Cup, and why FIFA had to change it, because there were teams that were like, well, we can just tie and both of us get in. There's no point in us playing as hard as we can, because that did actually happen. I'm forgetting the exact World Cup that it occurred, but I think, I can't remember the teams that were involved in that. But anyways, it happened. A cool, clever phrase for you. Behind every rule, there's a story. So that's why they have that sort of stuff. But anywho, Canada will face off against Bosnia and Herzegovina in Toronto for the opening game in Canada and the opening game of Group B play. And this is the third appearance for Canada in the World Cup. Their second coming just 4 years ago in the Middle East, and they had one appearance prior to that in 1986 where they had no goals whatsoever. And they have the return of their star, Alphonso Davies. The potential return. He's still been struggling a little bit with hamstring complications the last couple of months, but he was the first player in national history for Canada to score a World Cup goal, and that happened even though they didn't make it out of the group stage 4 years ago. And you look on the other side with Bosnia and Herzegovina, for a team that in the latest Coca-Cola FIFA rankings is 64, it still shocks me. And I know that a lot of people have seemed to get over this because they're finally in the World Cup, but it still shocks me that they were able to knock out Italy to qualify for the World Cup, especially when their last time was in 2014, and for a team that's only won once in the World Cup in a match against Iran. It's just incredible to me thinking about how this is all sort
There
of
you
playing.
go. Is that just on my screen?
I can't hear you.
Okay, all right, just making sure it wasn't. Not sure what happened, but I guess I'll just go ahead and pick up on what he was saying. Hopefully, he will uh, figure out that screen issue. But just picking up on what he was saying, though, yeah, this team is going to be anchored by, Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, going to be looking to return to good form. He's kind of been on a downward slope recently. They're going to need him to score goals for Canada to be successful in this World Cup. Maybe he'll join back. I'm not sure, but they're going to need him to really anchor this team. I expect Canada to come out tomorrow and play a good brand of football. And Bosnia is one of the weaker teams in the group. I think them and Qatar are the weakest. I think Switzerland could give Canada some problems, so they really need the 3 points tomorrow.
Yes, they need the 3 points. But right now we can talk about the experience again because most of the players of this national team had the experience of Qatar, and right now they know how to play these kind of matches. Maybe the people from Bosnia doesn't have the same experience. Only Edin Dzeko is the only survivor from Brazil 2014. And that could be the difference in this first match of the Group B.
Absolutely, and just so much goes back to the experience. Spencer, glad to have you back.
That's again a symptom of hotel Wi-Fi deciding
Nah,
to make
it's all good. I pretty
there.
much finished off of what you were saying about Canada, so it all tied in.
Good. I'm going to say it's great what was just said, and say, yeah, my co-host has got it done. But yeah, I mean, what I was just saying, just a brief thing about Bosnia and Herzegovina, the fact that they were able to shock the world with beating Italy in the qualifiers, and they've only gotten one win in the World Cup against Iran, and the last World Cup they were at was 2014, was still pretty incredible and such. So it's I'm excited to see this opening matchup, especially I hope that Toronto is packed, and there are, especially in a nation that is not traditionally known for supporting soccer. But in actuality, I was reading about this. Canada is having a lot more grassroots movement in terms of fandom for soccer than ice hockey at this point, which is kind of shocking to me when you think about how Canada just as a whole nation has been embedded in ice hockey. But I think it's also in part that how expensive it is to play ice hockey, even back decades ago. So I hope that just like Estadio Azteca was today, or Mexico City Stadium as we should be calling it, I hope that Toronto Stadium is the same way. Yeah, Etienne, your thoughts on this Canada and Bosnia Herzegovina match?
As I say to Drew, maybe the experience will play with Canada because Canada has experience to Qatar 2022. Well, that will be the difference because the Bosnian players they don't have the experience as Canada. One I think it's part of culture, part of the sport. Edin Dzeko was a survivor from the Yugoslavia war. Well, it's only something that could be curious for the people who likes the history, who likes these kind of things. It's only only a mention.
Yeah, I pretty much, I mean, I agree with everything. I've already got into my thoughts on Canada. It's gonna really come. I expect a good performance. I expect the Toronto crowd to be electric. I think that they're gonna be anchored by obviously Alphonso Davies, and they're gonna be reliant on the goal scoring of Jonathan David as well. And like I said earlier, I believe that this is a 3 points that Canada desperately needs because
Yeah.
I believe Bosnia, along with Qatar, are the weaker of the group. I believe Switzerland could give them serious problems.
Yeah.
So they really need these 3 points.
Yeah, and I'm going to be on site for Qatar Switzerland in a matchup that's still going to be good. I think Switzerland has been just a great consistent force in the World Cup over the years that they've been in, and
Absolutely.
couple other footnotes of some cool things about Canada and Bosnia. With Canada, Jonathan David, who's been playing for Juventus for a while. He's averaging, I believe this is in international play. It might just be overall in his career, but he's averaging a goal every 162 minutes in his scoring. So if you do the math on that, he's bound to score at least one goal here in this group stage stuff. Whether that comes in a clutch moment or whether that comes later on, who knows?
Well, they're going to need it.
Yeah, and another interesting aspect about this Bosnia-Herzegovina team, this is the only team that is qualified for the World Cup that did not have to go through a continental tournament in terms of the way they qualified and the shocker they had with Italy. So it's one of those that, again, we were talking earlier about the sort of odds like of Czech Republic, and well, they didn't necessarily have a difficult path in terms to get there, where it went all the way to extra times and such. You think about a team that didn't have to go through the gauntlet that is in the continental tournaments or in the intercontinental playoff and the ways that people have qualified for this World Cup. I mean, it's pretty significant on that. I think in Dzeko, he's the one who got the goal scored to tie them against Wales in terms of their recent international play. And especially for a guy who's 40 right now and is still playing pretty well for him on that
playing
side,
great.
man.
Absolutely.
It just Etienne, you wouldn't know about older guys doing really good stuff for Mexico, right?
Yeah, we have, for example, right now, Ochoa is so old for us.
Yeah.
One thing to add on that, like, I just have to say Ochoa, like, the only memory I have of him, and this is honestly what's so crazy that almost got me into soccer, was his performance in that 2014 World Cup was out of this world. I remember, like, being like, "Who is this keeper?" I've tracked Ochoa literally ever since because his performance in that World Cup was crazy.
The problem with him is that he couldn't reach that level again in
Yeah.
that level. He could play sometimes good, sometimes bad, but when he was playing with the national team, he was a different Ochoa because I remember when during Russia in 2018 in a match with against Germany, Ochoa played the box like a god. He was a different Ochoa because Ochoa had a lot of mistakes trying to catch the ball in the box. In that match, he was different. He was a god, but unfortunately for us, right now he's not in the same level. We could see that during the last season in Chipre. For that reason, right now, his best position is in the bench. Supporting to Raúl Talarranger.
Yeah, it's like we said, it's going to be a good match. I hope that I really expect. I'm on the same side with you, Drew. I think Toronto should be okay in terms of having the fans in there and keep people hyped on that aspect. And I do think Canada, Switzerland, it could come down to those two in terms of who wins the group. I'm not sure if I think it'll be telling how Qatar comes out against Switzerland in terms of that matchup the next day. But as we're going to be saying throughout any of these previews and recaps of matches and such, it's it's with group play. Again, you win your first match, you have a 75% chance to win the group.
Absolutely.
And you're on that same high statistic to be able to advance to the next round, which I know the numbers are going to start changing and be a little modified because of that third place group, but nobody wants to leave it to a sort of chance and a goal tiebreaker differential and all that situations in terms of trying to get to the round of 32, which to quote our colleague John Strong, that round of 32 is going to be carnage. So you want every advantage you can get in terms of being the higher seeds in the groups.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like it just the whole dynamic of the World Cup has changed now that, you have added so many more teams and it really, it really makes it honestly, I was hesitant about it at first, but now I almost like it because it really does make the group stage that much more competitive because every team is like, well, there's still a chance, with 8 out of the 12 groups getting a third place team. So I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to see when it comes down to that. The Premier League has decision day. We're going to have that on the final days of group play when we get down the stretch. Now we get into the marquee matchup that I don't think it could be on any other day. Well, actually, I do. It probably should have been on a Saturday night because it would have been primetime television for that to happen. But Friday night, in a way, will be just as good. I mean, technically close to – the sun will still be up in Los Angeles because it'll be 6 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. But the United States and Paraguay, I tell you, it's – what we were talking about Mexico and them having to set the stage and them having to step things up and make sure that they put the right tone in front of their fans and in front of their nation. The 1994 World Cup that was here in the States, there was already a known movement to bring Major League Soccer to existence and to start a major league and to build off of a momentum from there. This is crucial. And I was actually at Coach Pacinetto's press conference today, and he was asked verbatim by one of the reporters, it was talking about the New York Knicks and how fans were cheering on the streets with the NBA Finals, of how in Carolina with the Stanley Cup, people celebrating. I mean, in the Super Bowl, you have teams that are just celebrating at parades and all of that, and ask the question, how do you get people to do the same sort of rallying around this United States team? And as you can imagine, it was one of those answers of, well, we have to, very straightforward, we have to win. I think Coach Pacinetto, he gets his point across very directly, and I think he's right. Team USA's got to win this one. And I take out all of the group stage winning percentages and all that kind of stuff, but Alexi Lawless said this about a decade ago of a soccer generation that's been given everything. Team USA needs to be, in this moment in time, the soccer generation that tries to give younger generations a reason to want to go to the next level in the beautiful game. And I know they beat Paraguay once, and it's hard to beat a team twice. They beat them recently in the international friendly stuff within the last several months leading up to the World Cup. I get that. But this is just maybe I'm sounding pessimistic in saying that there's no option other for them to win there, because if they draw, I think people would be somewhat okay with that because they at least get a point. I say somewhat while Drew is shaking his head for the listeners out there. But this has to be a win. This has to be a win for the United States in my mind, Drew.
First of all, yes, absolutely. Like, I'm not settling for anything. Not only, and by the way, I am happy the game isn't Saturday night because, like you mentioned, being a huge NBA guy, I don't want to, have the game 5 of the NBA Finals on and that on at the same time. I'm glad I'm getting to watch both. But like you mentioned, the youth in this, in this nation when it comes to soccer is all eyes are on, the national team and during this World Cup. And I think it's so important. And I saw several interviews with several players, and they all agree that they said this is like inspiring the youth to want to play soccer, to want to pick up a soccer ball. And I think it's just so important that we get a win, not only because of that, but this group is not easy. We are not in an easy group at all. And I think that the competitiveness in the group is really going to show as, the group stage goes on. But I'm with you 100%. This is not a must win, but it's a must win.
In my
ATN.
opinion, Well, talking about the three host countries, United States has maybe the hardest rival for the opening match because maybe it's a rival that has we say in Mexico the colmillo, the teeth to play this kind of matches, to play with the referee sometimes, to play. Well, they are from South America. The football or the soccer here in South America, it's something in into the culture. You know, Paraguay maybe doesn't have the names as Argentina, as Uruguay, but they have a team. Obviously, we can talk about Almiron. Almiron is a very good player. Maybe it's not the same team as Cabañas, Roque Santa Cruz, Vilar, etc. But they have a team and they could find it because the coach Alfaro it's a really good coach that can make the group and give the group to another level. We could see him with Ecuador in the last World Cup, and Ecuador was so close to eliminate Netherlands and Senegal. That could be the same. How to say that process that we are watching right now with Paraguay.
Yeah, another thing I want to add is I think it's significantly important to finish top of the group for this reason also is the quality of teams that you are going to see in the rounds of 32 if you finish, second or third. Like if we somehow were to if the US somehow was to finish third place, they could play the likes of like a France in the round of 32 and that's a draw that nobody wants. So it's just so important, and I've been waiting so long for I guess by the time this episode's published for tonight's game, but I just can't wait.
I got to be honest with you, Drew. I think you're right about there was, when the World Cup draw happened, there was a lot of optimism among U.S. soccer fans and media members thinking that this would be an easier group. I just skimmed through, and I probably am not as good as math as I think I am, but Group D to me has the least gap in the Coca-Cola rankings between the four teams of all the other ones. I think Group B, I was about to say, comes somewhat close, but they have that drop-off with Bosnia and Herzegovina at 64, and the closest up in that at Qatar is 56, because the USA is 17. Australia is at, Turkey's at 22. Australia's at 27. Paraguay is at 41. So in terms of these, and I know the rankings aren't everything. We could talk about that. That's another discussion that could be had. But the fact that when you look at the rest of these groups, and there's either you've got one top tier team in the top 10, maybe one in the mid 20s, and then you've got 50 or below in the other two teams. You're right. This is a difficult group for anyone to get through. And
maybe we are talking about the hardest way to qualify to the next round.
Yes, that's what we're saying, is that it's 17 versus 41. Yes, it's a big gap there, but 17 versus 27 is probably going to be even more of carnage between the two when we get to Seattle for that second game. And then right after that, within 7 days, 17 versus 22 in Turkey. So yeah, you're right. It's not a must-win, but it's a must-win. But Absolutely. This is, I would venture as far to say whoever wins Group D is probably going to make one of the deeper runs into the elimination round, whoever survives that. And that gives hope for those of us who are covering Team USA or those who are fans of the Boys in Blue, because the last time the United States made it to even to the quarterfinal round was in 2002. They were third place once around the first time that the tournament was started, or within a couple editions of the original FIFA Men's World Cup. In the modern era, in a way, it's from 2002 forward, it's been round of 16 or worse. And a lot of folks have been saying around the media side, it's got to be quarterfinals or bust for Team USA. And even again, in the coach media availability, someone asked him, what is success to you? And he said, I don't know. Like, it's got to be win. For me, as the coach, he said, for me, it's win this game, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. So, yeah, the media tends to, us included, we tend to blow things out of proportion to do that stuff. But a lot of people in general are saying quarterfinals are bust because it hasn't happened in 24 years for Team USA on the men's side, especially with how much success the women's national team has had in the last several decades, as Drew rolling his eyes for those of us who are on the listening side, and justifiably so. The fact that the women's team has had so much success over the years, and the men's team really has not had that much to, to 4 World Cup championships and not having anything to show for it really on the men's side. And I know it's tough because of how amazing teams are. I'll put it this way. If Team USA faces off against Messi or Ronaldo in the elimination round and they lose any of those games, or they keep it within 1 goal, okay. For me, I'm comfortable with that because it's the final World Cup of 2 of the greatest soccer players in the world that we've ever seen. But if they lose in an elimination game, if we lose to Belgium again, man, I'm going to be frustrated because that 2016 game where Tim Howard was having to stay between the pipes for dear life and made a record most saves in a World Cup game because of how bad that back line wasn't holding him.
Talking about the goalkeepers, no? Again, Ochoa, Tim Howard, with Costa Rica, Keylor Navas. That was the best performance of the CONCACAF goalkeepers.
Well, and we don't even know who the goalkeeper is for Team USA. That was another question that came up in, put it this way. Pachinetto said, yes, I know who the goalkeeper is. I'm not going to tell you because you guys are going to call the goalkeepers and tell them because I haven't told them yet, which I agree with. That's a fair point in assessment, but everyone's wondering who's the starting goalkeeper for Team USA here? Like, who's the guy who's going to be the leader of this team in between the pipes? Like, we don't know yet.
It would definitely be nice to have a prime Tim Howard in the lineup, anchoring that back. But again, like, I don't want to seem like, being sour. I love the women's success. I loved Alex Morgan, Abby Wambach, Megan Rapinoe, like all of those USA women's legends. But it's about time that the men do something. And again, like everyone's saying quarterfinals are bust. I actually, in my own opinion, I will be happy. I said if we don't make it to the round of 16, I will be mad.
Yeah.
If we lose in the round of 16, that's pretty much what I'm expecting. Quarterfinals, great. Even past that, even better. But it's time. It's time, and there's no better year to do it. Who knows? How many times? Like hosting a World Cup comes once in a blue moon. So this is going to be a really huge moment for the whole nation.
Yes, because you have the potential, you have the opportunity, and you are at home. Well, everything is with you.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. World Cup is a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. Paraguay is going to have that opportunity for one game in 2030 with the centennial anniversary of the FIFA World Cup being hosted. And, I mean, it's tough for me to be so critical on Team USA as well because Paraguay, I mean, their qualification wasn't convincing. It was comfortable in their pathway, and this is their first appearance in the World Cup since 2010. And I mean, Julio and Chenzo at 21, he had the Premier League goal of the season for the 22-23 campaign. I know it's a couple of years ago on that, but he has that talent to be able to step up on there. And you've got several players on this Paraguay national team that are fighting for spots in respective clubs and trying to make themselves nationally known. So that's another thing that the World Cup does, especially when you have this break from all the other sports leagues, where you try to show that I could compete with the best of nations. So I should be signed to a multi-million-dollar contract somewhere in Europe, or maybe with MLS now, since they're getting relevant, or somewhere in the Common Bowl area, what have you. And it's just that these Group D matches are going to be very interesting to watch throughout the remainder of this group stage. And as much as I love that I'm going to be in SoFi for USA Paraguay, and it's going to be great to see how this plays out, and hopefully Team USA comes out with a win, I'm personally more excited for USA Australia and how that battle is going to go down in Seattle Stadium. I mean, this Group D, the Group D phase of these matches is going to be incredible to watch altogether. But it all gets started today in Los Angeles. So all right. Let's since we got these two matches coming up. I said I made the joke earlier about what's Drew thinking about. Let's say, who do we think is actually going to win these ones? It's a running name, or I think that's a term, either running name or malleable name. I guess we'll go with that. So who's going to win these matches? We'll start Canada and Bosnia and Herzegovina. I feel like this might be a little easier side of things. I'm going to take Canada. It's opening match in Toronto. They have a lot of home fans around. But I don't think it's going to be as much of a blowout as people may suspect. Watch me eat my words here. But I think it'll maybe be like a 2-0 victory maximum.
I was actually going to get ready to brag before we did this podcast, because I did the same thing yesterday. Like, I was going to predict both results. Got Mexico dead right. I said Mexico was going to win 2-0 to South Africa. And then I had Korea and Czech Republic at a 1-1 draw.
Okay.
So I was close.
One goal off. It's fine.
Canada, only one goal, the difference.
Canada, Bosnia. I do believe Canada will win. I think that one's pretty easy. I will say they win. I'm going to agree with the 2-goal margin. I'm going to say it's 3-1 instead of 2-0. I'm going to say 3-1.
I could see that too. I just think that there'll be a little more of a fight put up by Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think it'll just be slightly closer, but I do think I would not be surprised if they do get a goal on the board and then it just ends up being a wider gap. So I agree. It'll probably be a 2-goal distance, but I think Canada does the same thing in their opening match. I think they have a shutout. Yeah. How cool would it be if all three host nations managed to perform a shutout on their opening games and such? But who does? ATN, who you picking?
I will say maybe Canada 2, Bosnia and Herzegovina 1. But I need to say that Bosnia is not the under team of the group. Could be a surprise in this group, maybe as a third place. But in my opinion, the lowest team of this group will be Qatar. I couldn't see something Qatar 2022 with them. Well, in my opinion, will be in the first position Switzerland, second Canada, and the third will be Bosnia and Herzegovina. But maybe by the difference of goals, maybe.
That's actually dead on what I thought as far as the group standings went. So,
yeah, I mean, it's still great for Qatar to qualify on their own for the first time for the World Cup. Obviously, hosting it 4 years ago, they qualified automatically, so great for them. And I mean, it's kind of hard for me to. I think when Bosnia faces off against Qatar, it's going to be really telling, and it might be a key factor on that third place matchup, because Qatar was dominant in their qualifier wins at winning 10 of 18 games. So I mean, they're not necessarily a team that is down and out in a way, but I agree they're in a tough draw with Switzerland and Canada, so it's likely going to be a fight for that third place spot. And I agree. I think it may come down to goal differential between the two on however many goals they put up against one another in their respective teams. So it's even if Bosnia is not going to win this one, I do think that has to be in the back of the players and coaches' minds of how do we make sure this goal differential doesn't get so out of hand that we are in reasonable contention for that third place spot. So I agree. I think 2-1 is another great scoreline I would take. I just like the idea of a shutout for all the host nations. I just really love that. But speaking of host nations, so There's the cynic in me that wants to pick against Team USA to give them motivation. Not like they're going to listen to this before the match starts or anything. It'd be great. Pulisic, if you're listening, Pachinetto, if you're listening, Michael, the press officer for the USA, if anyone is listening to this, great. I promise I will be gentle in the mix zone, regardless of whether it's a win or loss. But I think. I want this to be a shutout, but I don't think it's going to be. I think probably it's probably going to be 2-1. I think Team USA gets a dramatic fashion goal at the end to please the crowd in Los Angeles Stadium. I would not be shocked if this goes in a tie either, but I'm going to say 2-1 Team USA.
Well, you're not going to believe this, but that was actually dead on my prediction too. I was never in a million years going to call it a draw. No matter even what I believe that the U.S. will come out tomorrow. I actually believe it'll go the other way. I believe the U.S. will start out 2-0, and then I believe that Paraguay will get one back, and then it'll kind of be that like sudden death feeling. But I think that the U.S. will pull it out. I think we'll get a 2-1 victory as well.
How late for that Paraguay goal?
I'm going to say in the 70th minute range.
Yeah, and then it gives them a little bit of hope, and they're keeping the pressure on, and because that's the other thing too, is wondering how's that back line going to be for the United States. Because when I did the media availability for John Strong and Stu Holden, that was a big concern that they were talking about, or a lot of the folks in the media were asking them about. The back line is a concern for the United States. The midfield is also a little bit of a challenge too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that'll really test the back line if it ends up being in that final 15 to 20 minutes of regulation where you figure out which defenders step up, midfielders. And the other thing I will say, because I know ETN's got to make a pick here, but Pulisic has struggled here in 2026. I know he's been poster boy sounds condescending, so I'm not going to say that, but he's been the face of U.S. soccer for the last couple of years, and he has yet to really make a monumental impact here in 2026. And I mean, I watched the Germany-USA final warm-up before the World Cup from Chicago, and it was, I think it showed a good resilience on Team USA's part, but I wonder, it's important for teams to get hot going into the World Cup, and the United States has not done that, where they've sort of tumbled in the last two matchups trying to get to sort of momentum going into this opening matchup on the West Coast. And I just hope that for Team USA's sake, Pulisic needs to score the opening goal, so that way he's got a fire lit under him, which I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe they have the same thing as Czech Republic, where it's a lot of set pieces or corners, and somebody just happens to head it in the right place, right time. But I think Pulisic needs a goal in this opening match to try to propel him to be the leader that everyone's expected him to be.
I completely agree with that. I know that we're going to need his heroics, and we're going to need his, his abilities to make it out of this group. Like we said, it's a tough group. We're going to need him, even if he does not get a goal. It would be so ideal if he got a goal in this opening match, but even if he doesn't, we're just going to need him to play with the confidence like everybody's seen. So.
ETN, recognize the company of people you're in. You're a 2-1 outvote, but give us who you think is going to win this one.
I would like to say the final score will be 2-0. like the U.S. national team against Mexico. But no, in my opinion, will be a draw, maybe 1-1. I hope that the U.S. national team won't lose this match, because if the national team lose, will be maybe we'll say goodbye to the tournament, because it's so hard, the group. It's so hard. Then defeat to Australia, to Turkey, because Turkey could be another of the surprises of this World Cup. Australia, we know maybe it's not the powerful team as Japan, South Korea, but it's always fighting for be in the next round. We could see in a lot of World Cups they won at least one match in the different tournaments. Well, this could be the next step for them. Every team in this group are trying to make the next step. Paraguay, it's trying to return to the level that once could reach. The U.S. national team, it's trying to make the step with this gold generation. And well, this could be the most important match, because you need to make points in this first in this opening match.
Is it wrong of me to be scared that the USA is going to tie in its opening match? As like I said, if it goes 1-1, I wouldn't be shocked, but I'd also be kind of disappointed. As much as, again, hard to beat a national team twice, it's is it wrong of me to say it would just be on par with Team USA if it were a tie?
No.
I mean,
you're not wrong at all. That would be on par.
I want it. Look. Part of me wants to be selfish and say the USA hasn't had that much. Give me this, but there's a lot of things the United States has that other people would say otherwise. Of like, you've got all of this. What are you talking about? But I just want to see a deep run from this team, and I don't know if that happens if the result is not a win. I don't know if a tie brings forth a deep run, especially like you have both said in this very challenging Group D. I don't know. Well, I don't know what happens if there's a tie in this opening match. Not only from a competition standpoint, but from a fan standpoint. Do people throw in the towel? Do they decide, you know what, let me try to resell my tickets to Australia because there's no hope anymore? Do people stop rallying around the boys in blue? I don't know.
I think if it's a draw, I think that there'll still be hope. But let me just say this: they better not lose.
Yes. If there is a loss, the city of Los Angeles is going to be incredibly frustrated, and there are going to be a lot of people drinking irresponsibly to try to drown out their sorrows. I don't encourage it. I'm just being I'm being realistic here.
For sure.
But I just
maybe in the moment they won't play for a win. They will play for not lose the match. That could be unfortunately for us if that happened.
Yeah, I just please don't lose. Please don't lose. But here's the other thing. If I'm in stadium and they lose, I'm gonna get the blame. They're gonna say I'm the one who causes the superstition.
You're not allowed to cover. You're not allowed to cover the rest of the World Cup if that happens.
It's gonna be on me. Even if there's an announcer's jinx from John Strong and Stu Holden, even if somebody else on one of the other broadcasters from Paraguay makes a sort of announcer's jinx or whatever, it's gonna be on my shoulders, and I guess I have to take the brunt of that. But yeah, we got two of us saying it's gonna be a win, one's a tie, so we'll we'll see how it goes. ETN, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a late night in terms of our recording stuff, which is probably going to be the case during this World Cup anyway, because of the amount of traveling I'm doing, but also just the nature of all these matches on, the West Coast and such. But, man, good to get your insights. Good to have you with us, and let's do it again sometime, all right?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you for the invitation. You can find me in Instagram as Etienne photo with PH, because, well, in Spanish, photo is with F. And you can find my articles in Sport Illustrated, Sport Illustrated Mexico, because, well, you have your own Sports Illustrated in USA now. Well, and you can find my articles in CICOM website. It's a kind of news of the state of Puebla. I'm collaborating with them with sport articles. Well, you can see my profile in IPS, and you can find some of the best articles of the G20 World Cup in Chile.
I think ETN just started a tradition for us, because I did not say
Definitely.
anything in that sentence about shameless self-promotion, but you have to do it anyway, right? You got to get your brand out there and make sure you talk
course.
about your stuff. But yeah, it's all perfect. Drew, you got any closing thoughts as we prepare to watch Team USA's opening match, and same case for Canada?
I don't, but just a lot of nerves. Obviously, a lot of nerves. But I am happy that we've finally got this podcast started. And finally, getting our first episode out there. There's so much more to come, and it's going to be a really, really fun next month. So I can't wait.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Gonna be a lot of fun on this venture for the NSMA 2026 FIFA World Cup podcast. For Drew Williamson, who's co-hosting and producer, as well as but our Etienne Photo joining us here on the World Cup podcast here on behalf of all the hardworking men and women that make this run so smoothly. I'm Spencer Thompson saying so long from all the places we are here virtually. Episode 1 in the books for this World Cup podcast. More to come as we continue to cover the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Hey there, thank you so much for listening or watching the NSMA 2026 FIFA World Cup podcast. A special thank you to our Platinum Insiders, the Banzet family, Robert Eggleston and Jason Edmonds, for their support of the podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast and my journey to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the link is in the description. Not only are all donations potentially tax deductible, as the NSMA is a 501c3 nonprofit, but you also can get your name here on this graphic in the description, and you could get some exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Appreciate those of you who have donated so far, those who are going to donate, and hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast during the 2026 FIFA World Cup.